car.
Yeah.
All we heard is 3 or 4 idiots stole a car and across the street. 3 hits, 2 pedestrians, 1's dead, 1's clean, and 1's dead. All we know.
All right, anybody not ready? Okay. All right, I'm Pinellas County Sheriff Bob Gualtieri, and I'm going to lay out what happened here last night that involved a crash. As you can see, the crash scene is behind me. So at about 3:20 this morning, the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office received a call of a vehicle burglary at 2998 58th Avenue North in unincorporated St. Petersburg. So that's the area just to the west and south of where we are now. The caller had seen somebody breaking into a car in his driveway. He had it on video. Deputies, K-9, and a helicopter responded and identified the suspect, and we're in the process of taking that person into custody. That burglary is not related to this except for the fact it's the reason why deputies and the helicopter were in the area. As the helicopter was in the area and they were providing overwatch from above as the deputies taking the person into custody, they saw 3 males on the south side of 62nd Avenue North walking eastbound. As those 3 males were walking eastbound, they looked suspicious. The helicopter pilots got on the radio and asked for ground units to come and find out what they were doing. So again, we're now somewhere around 3:30 in the morning. So as the ground units were on their way to check these guys out, they continued eastbound. They went past a residence in the area of 62nd Avenue North and 28th Street. There was a 2016 Maserati that was parked in the driveway of the residence. One of the males, who is identified as Keondrick, Keondrick, last name is Lang, Lang, and he's a black male with a date of birth of 2/20/07, is that he walked up to the car and he used his shirt to open the door handle of the car. Obviously, he didn't want to put fingerprints on or DNA on the car, so he was doing it stealthily to open that car door handle. As soon as he opened the car door handle, so obviously he realized that the driver, owner of the car, when he parked the car last night, left the car unlocked. He left his keys in the car, which is a challenge that we face all the time. We talk about this all the time, is people really need to lock their car doors and don't leave your keys in the car, but they do. And when these kids are out in the middle of the night and they're stealing cars and breaking into cars, that's what they're looking for. And so that's what happened here, is that this guy got in the car door was unlocked, used his shirt to open the door handles, and saw the keys and started the car. At that point, the other 2 males that were with him, and one of those is Mario, M-A-R-I-O, Bonilla, B-O-N-I-L-L-A, 15-year-old black male, date of birth 12/25/06. The other one is Malachi, M-A-L-A-C-H-I. Last name is Daniels, 16-year-old black male, date of birth is 3/6/06. So they get into the car. Bonilla is the right front passenger. Daniels is seated in the back seat. And again, Lang is driving. So they pull out from the driveway with no lights on the car. They go over the grass area, over the curb, and out onto 62nd Avenue North. And they're going eastbound on 62nd Avenue North, so it's that way to my right, your left, from the area down to the west of where we are. And at that point, the helicopter's up above, sees them, and the deputies arrive in the area. And as the deputies arrive in the area, they see the car. One deputy is behind them, one's on the side of them. They get up close to them, and they turn on their overhead lights. At that point, the car rapidly accelerates. The speeds are estimated to get up to about 80 miles an hour. And I believe this is a 35-mile-an-hour road out here. The deputy sergeant immediately gets on the radio, because we don't chase, we don't pursue for stolen cars, and told them to terminate. They immediately turned off their overhead lights, and they slowed their speeds down to about 30 miles an hour. They were not pursuing, the lights weren't on, and the car continued. The helicopter's up above, the helicopter's calling it out. As they continued at a high rate of speed with no lights on, eastbound on 62nd Avenue North, So back here over my left shoulder, to your right, is they lost it. The driver of the car lost control of the car, and again, that was Keandrick Lang. And again, these are young kids. They're inexperienced drivers, no driver's licenses, driving at 3:30 in the morning, 80 miles an hour, and the car starts fishtailing over the road. He had no control over the car at that point. The car runs up over the curb, runs across the sign of the business behind me. The car flips. As I said, Bonilla was the front passenger. Daniels was in the back seat. The deputies arrived on the scene, and the deputies that were behind the car, who initially tried to stop it by turning their lights off and then disengaged, were James, and I'll spell his last name. It's Sevostjanov, and a K-9 deputy, Kellen Zanandri, Zandrie. Those were the first two deputies arrived here on the scene, went up to the car, tried to render aid, but realized quickly that Bonilla is deceased and he died here at the scene. Daniels is in the hospital with life-threatening injuries, not expected to make it, and Lang is in the hospital with critical injuries, but for right now, what they're telling us, his injuries are not life-threatening. None of these kids have criminal histories to speak of. One of them has a misdemeanor arrest from back in June. The three of them, though, on September 11th, so less than a month ago, at 4 o'clock in the morning, were stopped by a Kansas City police officer at 47th Street and 61st Avenue North. So just to the west of where we are now, and just to the south off 62nd Avenue. And they were stopped by that Kansas City police officer, sound familiar, at 4 o'clock in the morning, all wearing black clothes, hoodies, faces covered, walking in a residential area. The Kansas City police officer did what we call an FIR or a field interview report, and called the parents of some of them, and those kids were up to, these three boys, they took their photographs, they documented it, got parents to come pick them up. So, based on that and this, is these kids were on that bad path of what we see with these kids time and again is they're out in the middle of the night, they're looking for cars to break into, they're looking for cars to steal, and these are, again, crimes of opportunity, and they're looking for unlocked cars and cars that have the keys in them, and that's what they found here. And they got in the car and took off, and this is what happens when you're an inexperienced driver. You're at 3:30 in the morning driving 80 miles an hour, and you lose it. And unfortunately, one has lost his life. The other one looks like he's going to lose his life, and the other one has some pretty serious injuries. Now, this entire thing is captured on video. It's captured on video from the helicopter overhead. It's captured on video from the dash cameras that the deputies have. There's audio traffic from the radio. I'm telling you what I know now based upon reviewing the video out here at the scene, statements from the deputies, and the investigation as we know it. We also know, and you all know, that these are fluid investigations, especially in the earliest stages. Things are subject to change, and I'm just telling you what I know as I know it now. It could change as things unfold and we do further interviews and do the investigation over the next day or so. I would ordinarily release this video probably tomorrow and do a press conference tomorrow to release the video. We have a funeral tomorrow for a deputy that was killed in the line of duty, Deputy Hartwick, so I probably won't hold a press conference and release the video tomorrow. We'll probably do it on Tuesday and run through it. We'll release the helicopter video, all the audio, you can hear it, and we'll release the dash camera video, and we'll probably do that on Tuesday. Two of the kids go to Northeast High, one goes to, the other way around, two go to St. Pete High, one goes to Northeast High. It's really about it. Again, very sad situation. But it's something we see, unfortunately, time and again, and have seen time and again in this county, where these kids are going out in the middle of the night and doing this. And, you all remember, I'm sure one of you is going to ask about it if I don't raise it, but we had the situation years ago with the 3 girls in the pond. We've had the 3 boys up at Tampa Road in 19 a couple years ago that were killed in stolen cars, same type of situation. And, just ask people, and be clear about this, is that people shouldn't leave their car doors unlocked and leave their keys in the car. But It's their property. That's what they choose to do. They are, not, quote, doing anything wrong. What's wrong is these kids are out in the middle of the night being opportunistic and stealing people's cars and driving 80 miles an hour and not having a driver's license and not knowing what they do. And unfortunately, one has died, another one is most likely going to die, and the other one has got some pretty serious injuries. So, any questions you all have?
Sheriff Gualtieri, you say the teens had already been in, some similar trouble. It looks like they were already going down this path, and their parents came and picked them up. Just what message do you give to those parents? Because I know they were out, at 3 in the morning.
Well, preliminarily from talking to the parents, and again, this is just preliminary at this point, but it looks like the kids were home and that they snuck out, and the parents just didn't know. We've talked to the parents, and they last saw them at home when they went to bed, and they said that they were home. So this is not a situation where, and we've seen it in the past, this is not the situation that we've seen in the past, where the kids were on their own, they weren't being attended to, cared for, etc., that the parents weren't involved. That's some of those other incidents. This one, it appears that the parents were actively involved and that the kids were home and that they thought their kids were in bed asleep. So you can only imagine the angst of those parents when, in the last 45 minutes, when we knocked on their door and told them that one of their sons is deceased and the other one is probably going to be deceased. And they said that they had noticed some concerning behavior and they were trying to work through it. One of the parents had moved the kids recently from one school to another, and that they were, these were 15, 16-year-old kids. 15, 16-year-old kids, you're going to have some issues with them. But the parents, in these cases, from what we can tell, were involved and obviously mortified.
Can you speak about, you said that, the 2 units that were following them turned off their lights, they broke chase with it, and the helicopter continues to follow them. So can you kind of speak a little bit about what that is? Are you looking to intercept them in a less dangerous place, or how does that work?
See what they do, sure. If they stop someplace, and so, what we'll do with the helicopter, the helicopter's obviously up. They don't know the helicopter's up there. It's flying high enough. And the helicopter just watches. And when we have those situations where we've tried to stop it, they accelerate, we disengage. And again, the deputies were, when this crash is at 10th Street and 62nd Avenue behind me, the deputies were probably back around 16th Street when the crash happened, maybe a little bit to the east of 16th Street. So they were a good ways off. Again, they had shut down all their emergency equipment. They were doing about 30 miles an hour, and I can tell that because I've watched the video and the speeds on the video. So they were not pursuing. And the helicopter will stay up overhead and see where they go. A lot of times what they'll do is that when we see this, is that when law enforcement has tried to stop them, they'll then go down a side street, they'll dump the car and bail out and run and go hide. And that's where we use K-9, we get on foot and we'll try and find them. Or they'll go someplace and they'll park the car, especially here in St. Pete, they'll go into alleys, they'll go behind residences, they'll park the car and dump the car, and then we try and find them. So the whole idea about having the helicopter up overhead is if they're driving fast, it's not because of the police. They're driving because that's what they do. And we can keep an eye on them. And really, the hope is that they slow back down again. And once the deputies disengaged, they didn't slow down. They just kept going at a high rate of speed. They slow back down, they get to where they're going, we can find out. We have a very, and anybody that's got any questions about it, I challenge you to go read it and compare it to others. We probably have one of the most restrictive pursuit policies of any agency in the state. We don't engage in pursuits because they're dangerous. But we also have to do our job, and we also have to engage people that are involved in criminal activity because that's what we do and that's what the public expects. So when we engage them, though, is that it's a stolen car, it's property. And in this case, it's property that the owner, to be honest with you, he didn't care enough about it to lock the door or take his keys. So I don't want to see anybody put in harm's way, put anybody in peril over a piece of property that the owner didn't care enough about to protect himself. But is that we're also going to do our job, but at the soonest possible moment when it looks like that there is a potential risk, we're going to stop and disengage is what we do. But we still want to try and solve the crime and take these people into custody and hold them accountable. So that's the purpose of having a helicopter up, and that method works, and it works well, and it's done as safely as we can do our jobs and to be effective in law enforcement, because these kids, they need to be taken off the street. It looked like mean, again, they were stopped a month ago trying to do the same thing. How many times in the last month have they actually done it? I don't know the answer to that. But if they did it a month ago, this isn't only the second time they're out doing this. I mean, that's common sense will tell you that. So they need to be held accountable for it.
Would it be safe to say that more often than not, in that situation where they disengage and the car goes away, that you do end up capturing them using the helicopter?
I'd say it's 50-50. You know, a lot of times what we're seeing lately is they haul over the Howard Franklin, they go to Tampa. And once they go to Tampa, with the helicopter, we disengage. So I'd say it's about 50-50 as far as whether we catch them or not. A lot of times they'll bail, and sometimes we get the K-9 and we set perimeters and we find them on foot. Sometimes we don't. I'd say it's about 50-50.
Sure.
You said there was an auto burglary call going on. The helicopter was already up. Deputies were already there. K-9 was there, and it was just a fluke that the helicopter pilot saw this car being stolen nearby.
Well, I wouldn't call it a fluke. I call it the deputies doing their job. You know, they were attentive to what was going on in the area. They were watching, and we didn't know whether these kids were related to the burglary. Remember, we're there for a burglary call. One's in custody. They're looking for other people in the area, and it's not unusual that there are multiple people, as you saw here, that are involved in these crimes. So the deputies, it isn't a fluke, they were doing their job, and they were looking for suspicious activity, anybody else that's in the area, because all this is unfolding simultaneously. It's all happening at the same moment. So as they're seeing them take this guy into custody for breaking into the car, they see these kids, and they don't know whether these kids are related to that burglary.
Have you guys been able to contact the owner of this car?
Yes. He's been here. He saw his car.
It is a Maserati.
It is 2016 silver. I guess it was Maserati.
Sheriff, so there were 3 teens in the vehicle, this Maserati, and then there was another person that you guys were originally looking for arrested.
Right, and we arrested that guy, and it turns out, best we can tell right now, okay, is that original burglary, the address I gave you on 58th Avenue North, is unrelated to these kids. The best we can tell, it's unrelated. I provide that for context as to why we were in the area, what we were doing, what the helicopter was doing, and why it was there. Now, of course, we're still investigating it, and the person who was taken into custody and that other one is a black male in his 20s. These are young kids, so again, he denies knowing them. And I think, from the best we can tell, he's probably telling the truth about that. But again, we're still investigating. It could be related, but I don't think so at this point.
I know you said that the parents in this case, were aware of it. They were not negligent in what they were doing. If a parent knows that their kid is potentially doing something they're not supposed to be doing, what do you recommend they do to keep them off of that?
Well, resources that are available, through community services, through the schools, if there's anything available, you got to try and get them the help, get them involved in activities, keep their time structured. But you can only do that. This is kids that are going out sometime after midnight and sneaking out of the house. One of the kids shared a room with a younger sibling. And from what I understand from the deputies talking to the parents this morning, is that the younger sibling didn't even know he left. So, you got to feel for these parents, because they know that they got the issues you got with the 15, 16-year-old kids. They're trying to do something about it, trying to be aware of it, and the kid sneaks out. It's just bad. But, for the parents that are out there that are having challenges with their kids, is that there are resources available, there's help that's available. But even if you engage all that, sometimes just bad things are going to happen. All right, so you can plan on probably, and again, if anything needs to be updated between now and then, we'll send something out, let you all know. But the plan now will be not to have any further updates on this or do anything probably till Tuesday because of the funeral tomorrow. All right, thanks.